Friends, a very warm welcome, bienvenue. It's good to have visitors from across Europe and across Essex and across the country for this tremendous event today. My name's Roger, I'm the Bishop of Colchester, and I'm also one of the commissioners on the Essex Climate Action Commission. Copies of our report have been printed out in short supply and are around the building today. It's great to see you all here, and I'm particularly grateful to Toddington Harper for welcoming us to this great, innovative and groundbreaking facility. And so without further ado, I welcome Todd to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And welcome again to everybody. I'm Toddington, and I'm the CEO of GRIDSERVE. Just going to spend a few minutes talking to you, kind of a bit of background, just to, I guess, set the scene a bit more. You can hear a bit of an echo, hopefully you can hear me okay. As to kind of what this is really all about, why we're here, and what it's so important we need to achieve over the next couple of weeks. So if we just go to the next slide, please. So for me, I look at this really all the time, and this is probably the most visual representation of the issue. This is, as of yesterday, based on IPCC data, an illustration of the problem that we've got. The objective is to keep global temperatures below 1.5 degrees C of warming, certainly below 2 degrees, but 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees makes a huge difference. We're unfortunately already about 1.2 for people who think we've got quite a way to go. And the issue really is that translates to a number. And the number at the moment, it's not exact, obviously, but it's around 326 billion tonnes of carbon emissions left that we can never, ever emit. And that's the thing. And whilst we can never, ever emit that, or we're going to hit this scenario, at the moment, we're on track for that to happen in less than 8 years from now. And so, there's a lot of things that are going to be happening over the next 2 weeks in COP. People are going to be talking about all sorts of crazy things, all sorts of distractions. I heard it on LBC this morning. They were talking about how messy the city was and how rubbish men are going on strike next week. And all this commotion, it's just so important that we keep the narrative back on what the problem actually is and what we're here to do. And obviously you guys get that because most of you have turned up in electric cars from all over Europe, and that's absolutely awesome. But it's really, really important that we just keep that narrative on the issue. A little bit more about us. So what are we doing? We, as a business, exist. Our central purpose is to help address that issue. What we call that is moving the needle on climate change. So we're on a trajectory at the moment, and it's not good news for any of us. So I was speaking to my brother, who also works in our business, Heston. He's another service station. For those who don't know, we're named after service stations, which is extremely strange. And he went diving a few days ago in Indonesia. He lives out there. He didn't travel there to go diving. And he was diving on some sites that he's been kind of monitoring over the last few years. And he said he was basically brought to tears. He said the coral is just dying and at an incredible rate. It is a real issue. But the good news is it isn't dead yet, and there is hope now, and that's what we need to hang on to. So we as an organisation are really doing everything we can to deliver sustainable energy, which is clearly a big part of the solution, as quickly as possible, in order to kind of change the situation, which we uniquely, me, you, all of us here now, everyone available today, have the opportunity to fix. But future generations don't. So if you can just jump to the next slide. What we're doing, how we're coming about this, our kind of view, and we've been working on this for quite a few years, is that a big part of what's got us into this climate catastrophe, but also enabled such amazing things in terms of our transport system and how we get around, is that our entire transport system has to date effectively been based on a well-to-wheel ecosystem. Oil wells, oil wells, refineries, pipelines, petrol forecourts, and combustion engine vehicles. And it's given the world so many incredible benefits, but environmentally it's caused us a huge number of issues. But if that's the problem, then the solution is a net zero carbon equivalent of that. And that's what we're building. And we call it sun to wheel. Because what people don't often think about is that the energy in oil wells is stored sunlight from around 300 million years ago. That's what it is. And so what we're doing is we're building new solar farms as an alternative to 300 million-year-old sunlight. We're building batteries to kind of balance and make that energy even more useful. We're building electric forecourts like this, also electric hubs, and we're also assisting the uptake of electric vehicles in the earliest possible timeframes. I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of slides to show you how we're doing that. So when we talk about building solar farms, this is what we mean. So we've built around 500 acres, I think now, of solar farms in about the last 18 months. Enough energy produced to probably take 50-odd thousand vehicles to power them constantly forever because they're renewable. This project here is also backed by its own solar farm, which provides net zero carbon energy. And when people say, well, what are you doing? Are you not taking land away from agriculture and so on? Actually, we're also doing a lot there as well, because we're both enhancing biodiversity, which is obviously essential, because the other problem that's on our watch is that humans have wiped out 60% of the world's wildlife in less than 50 years. And a big part of that is because of agriculture, and we need to give nature a chance. So we're giving nature a chance, and we're turning these sites into nature sanctuaries to protect species. We're also working on projects that can co-generate food as well as generate energy. So that's kind of the alternative of the well, skipping 300 million years and all the gunk that's built up all over that time. So the next slide, please, is where we are today. So this is, I think it's the world's first, it's definitely the UK's first electric forecourt. Now, one thing that I was really excited about, so many electric vehicles here, and I can't imagine many people have got any charging anxiety. Isn't that great? Like, could you imagine going to any other location apart from possibly rugby, where you don't have anxiety when this kind of number of people turn up? And this is just the beginning. And so we're building a network of electric forecourts across the country, and ultimately we're looking to expand this, outside of the UK, because we can't just fix climate change in the UK. And these designed to serve local areas, particularly the 40 or 50% probably of people who just can't easily charge from home. If I go to the next slide. Something really interesting I thought I'd share with you is that nature actually really does provide. You just got to look for it. What we've discovered, having been building solar farms, building charging infrastructure, and electric vehicles, is we've actually discovered, much to our amazement, is that there's an almost perfect correlation. About 80% of the energy that we produce from solar farms is produced at exactly the same time as people use it on our charging network. Which is just extraordinary, isn't it? So what that also means is that you can not just produce either zero carbon or net zero carbon energy, because some of the projects are directly connected, but you can do it at a much lower cost, because you don't have to transport it, distribute it, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's now cheaper to make clean energy from solar anyway. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It's a very interesting correlation. So that's an actual solar production curve from one of the projects, and that's an actual consumption curve across our network, across the whole of the UK. So really, really interesting. Next slide, please. Thought I'd share something new with you. So you're at the first electric forecourt. This is the second one. This is in Norwich. We're going to open this hopefully in the early Q2 next year. Very, very exciting, a different format, hopefully with kind of similar levels of wow factor to this place. And why that's important is you need to kind of capture people's imagination. We need to kind of get people to want to transition to EV, not just because they're told that they should and they have to. And hopefully projects like this will also continue to give people the confidence. And when it's finished, it's going to look like, go to the next slide, it's going to look like that. And for anybody who wants to have a look, if we actually do what we say we're going to do, if you look at some of the visualizations we've got on the website of what we said this place was going to look like before we built it, it's pretty much exactly the same. So that is what it's going to look like very soon. On to the next slide. In addition to that, we are installing chargers across many other locations that are already suitable for people while they're charging EVs, such as across the motorway network, destinations like IKEA and so on. So we've upgraded over 100 locations in the last 100 days, and we've started with the first major upgrades, which is the hubs. So Rugby Services, for example, here, 12 350 kilowatt chargers alongside 12 Tesla chargers. If you go on to the next slide, again, what we haven't shown people, because we've just been quite focused on what we're doing, is that there's a massive amount of those new hubs coming now and in construction. So this is an example of a site, another 12 hub site in Thurrock, and in fact we've got one on both sides. So there's a lot of infrastructure coming. Obviously we'd all like it to come quicker, but we're certainly throwing everything we can at it. Now, none of what we've talked about would really be possible if people don't use electric vehicles, and we need them to be taken up at a massive rate. What we're doing is we're delivering infrastructure ahead of demand, and we think that's needed because otherwise people won't have the confidence to make the transition. But in order for us to continue doing what we're doing, the business case needs to work. We've managed to get the confidence of some incredible investors, like Hitachi Capital and TPG Rise Fund. But we also need the economics to work, because if they do, then we'll just keep going and scaling and scaling and scaling, and things are going in the right direction. So a big part of what we're doing as well is we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to get electric vehicles. And so we've spent months, we've got an amazing team who are around here, the Electric Vehicle Solutions team, to kind of work out how do we make electric vehicles accessible to the masses. And this is an example of what we're doing now. So we've chosen a leasing model because it's very simple. People can lease vehicles from less than £130, plus VAT if you're an individual, but that's what it costs if you're a business. And this is just an example of vehicles that people can lease today at an incredibly low cost. And when you take into account the much lower operating cost of running these vehicles, they're less expensive than combustion engines. And that's so, so important. But I would also say, if there are any people who haven't come here today in an electric vehicle, please go and get one today. You don't have to get one. You don't have to. You don't have to get one from us, although it'd be great if you did and there's people around. But just get one. Why not? What's to lose? And I'm sure it's not possible for everybody, but let's just give it a go. But what's more than that, encourage everyone else to get them. And I know I'm preaching to the converted, I'm sure you all do that already. But we really need to get a move on, or this isn't going to happen within the timeframes we require. And from what hopefully you can see from here, what is the reason not to? There's infrastructure like this, there's vehicles are coming, there's other people as well as us that are really fixing this stuff quickly. So, what's not to love about this? And I think just the final slide from me, I guess just a summary and overall message. I kind of think about this a lot. This is on our watch. If this is a next decade issue that we're dealing with, I've got my youngest daughter is 6 years old, so it's not on her watch. Well, she's living through it, but she can't help. It's everyone living and able today. We're the people that uniquely have the opportunity to fix this issue. Has there ever been such a situation ever in the history of humanity, the world, where we could actually have an opportunity to fix the planet that sustains our life before it's too late? And has that opportunity ever fallen on people before within a tight window of opportunity? Well, those people are us now. So when I say get an electric vehicle today, get an electric vehicle today. So the thing, hopefully, because you have to give a positive message, is that yes, there's a huge problem and it's incredibly, challenging we're dealing with, but the solutions are within our reach. I completely believe that. This is an example of that, And also, mankind had, humanity has, for sure got us into this situation, and I have no doubt can get us out of it. I think the thing is, and what just needs to happen over the next couple of weeks, and thereafter, because really it's the journey to COP, but actually, it's beyond that that's clearly much more important, humanity has the ability to resolve the climate crisis. We just need to make the choice to actually do it. Not to say, oh, I'm going to a little bit on the side, or I'm going to do a bit of recycling, or I'm going to do this. We're actually going to fix this. Like the world decided last year that we were going to actually address the pandemic. And we stopped, and we fixed, to a large extent, the huge challenges that were obviously still facing us. But, wasn't it amazing how quickly the world responded? And if we respond to climate change, which is a much bigger problem than the pandemic, because there is no vaccine, then we will fix this. We just need to do it. And we summarize that as a very simple phrase. We need to #deliver. Thank you, everybody.
Friends, Toddington, Harper, at least they didn't name you Watford Gap. That would have been embarrassing. But it's great to have Toddington here. 2 tonnes a year per person could be saved if you switch from an internal combustion engine to an electric vehicle. So go ahead and do it. Really important. My colleague, the Bishop of Norwich, will be delighted that they're getting the next GRIDSERVE over in Norwich. He's also the lead bishop for the environment, so there might be a publicity thing there that could be useful. But it's great to move on now to Hattie. Hattie is sporting a dress that a little craftivist group in Maldon have made. Hattie's heading up to COP26, and she's going to say something about it. Hattie, come here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a young campaigner for the protection of the planet in its broadest sense, and it's pretty huge. I think that's perhaps why we struggle with it sometimes. I'm a strong believer in the health and justice that will enable us to create a healthy future for not only nature, but for humanity as well. To create a healthy planet, we need action. And we need action and people who are willing to make those changes that have been widely recommended for years, however unpopular they are. I'm confident that due to the fact that young people will be most impacted by climate change, it will and can be those exact same young people who are keeping this high on the profile and the agenda. COP26 is quite possibly the most important turning point in history. When we look back at a moment in history, what will our children think? When the science provided tells us that the climate crisis can go either one of 2 ways, it's simple to say that we have been warned. Make drastic change within business, within the walls of power or global economies, or quite simply face the consequences. Decision makers at COP26 have the world waiting on their agreements and actions. Failure at this stage is simply unimaginable. Do you know what 2 degrees increase looks like locally? I have to be optimistic that this will be a changing point when the planet overcomes the profit. It is such a pivotal moment for young people. Their lives and the future of their home is under threat. Some people may ask, why are young people going to attend COP26? What can they possibly have to offer? However, it is vital that young people attend COP26, such as myself, so that we get to experience it, so that we get to prepare for the next conference of parties and the next and the next and the next. But we have things to say right now that need to be listened to. We've done our homework and we're ready. I'm currently working alongside Maldon District Council, who, with the help of myself and other young people, hope to lead the way in our community to bring about climate action that is so vitally needed. I find myself saying this many, many times, but the most powerful tool we all own is our voice. Each and every person in this room has a way of communicating and creating meaningful, inclusive conversations that can and will have an impact. Talking to each other opens up many opportunities and it makes people think. With the outcomes of COP26 just around the corner, we need to be thinking about how areas in Essex can bring about meaningful change. Changes that every business and individual can play a part in. Changes that other areas will look at and will want to replicate. Young people need to know events such as COP26 so they can make informed judgments and the impacts that it will have on a global community. We have been raised in a world connected by the internet. Those making decisions at COP26 weren't subjected to all that information and data that we have. It's too late to close the lid on the negatives of the internet. We've already seen what's out there, and the likelihood is on what it will look like in the respects of climate change. It cannot be hidden. In the same way, we can't go back to the Victorian ideology that children should be seen and not heard. The youth voice should be loud and clear at COP26 because we know what's coming and we will not forget the promises that were made. Many of you sitting here today are leaders of business owners, parts of an environmentally focused work life. But how many of you here knew that this is what you wanted to do when you were younger? How many of you were given information about sustainable and environment-focused jobs in your time during your education? I'm going to make a reasonable judgment and say that it was little. Things haven't changed. In fact, they probably got worse. I was recently shown a video on climate change at school that was sponsored by Shell. I think that sums it up. If we want a sustainable planet that works alongside nature, we must have conversations with children and young people about green jobs in all aspects of work life. The environment needs to be embedded into recruitment and all training jobs. I am 16 years old, but here I am talking to you about changing the world. I'm 16 years old and I am already proving that young people can change the way you look at things. My generation want this change. No, in fact, we need this change. COP gives the world this opportunity to change. You can change business. You can change the education system. Now is the time to change the way society views the world. If there ever was a time to know the difference between right and wrong, it is now. Thank you.
Hattie, that was fabulous. And to think that when you are my age, we'll have either done this or we will have caused such irreparable damage to this planet that there will be no comeback. So the time to act is now. So thank you for such a powerful message. If you thought the dress was a great sight, seeing Councillor Peter Schwier on the spin scooters outside rivals it entirely. But here he is, Essex's very own climate change czar.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for coming to this event. As Bishop Watchers said, my name is Peter Schwier, and I'm Deputy Cabinet to the Leader, Kevin Bentley, and Climate Czar. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm a third-generation Essex farmer, and I think it's really important to note that when I was much younger, working on the farm, I really did learn how to work and look and see the environment and also the climate in general. And what was really fascinating was some of the old farming boys who used to be around then, they gained a whole lifetime of knowledge too, and they passed those really good knowledge and the way that they could understand the climate and work with it, because it was really important to work with the soil. As a lot of people used to say then, if you work and look after the soil and the farm will look after you. So that was really good advice, and I think that also applies to the climate as well. My role as Climate Czar is very broad, and it's really interesting. And at Essex County Council, it goes all the way from highways and cross-cuts all through to the portfolios, all the way to even adult social care as well. So it's a huge task, an interesting one, and one that we're really engaged with. And I'd like to give you a few examples of what Essex County Council is actually has accomplished so far. I recently went to Swain School at Rayleigh, where we installed our first modular, innovative school building. It was single level, and it had solar panels on the roof, high levels of insulation, and it was powered also with a small air source heat pump. And as you know, an air source heat pump takes the energy from the air, compresses it to create extra energy. And this glass room was great because it was also had the offices and a great hallway with the lockers in. But what was really good about it was also they had a heat exchanger in it as well. So the incoming air that was fresh was heated by the outgoing air, which was moist and not such a good quality. So the whole building is net zero, but it provides a very good comfort level as well. Another thing that we did recently, in the summer I went to Danbury Community School, and there we put solar panels on the roof again as renewable energy, but the head teacher there was very engaging with all of the children. And what was fascinating about that was that the children were so engaged with it, they actually started their own recycling process, and they recycle now their crisp packets, and of course they've eaten all of the contents before they do that. But what was great that came out of this was in talking to the dinner personnel who were cooking there, they found out that just by switching, just a simple switch, switching the ovens on 1 hour later every morning, that they were able to save an estimated £2,000 per year, which could then go back into the education, which was great. And it also allowed the children to have such good quality meals as well, just the same. And I think that's a really good example of how collaboration between all levels works extremely well. I also, in the summertime, I went to Colchester train station for a bucket and spade day, and that was great fun. And this was really about active travel, and it was a day that was arranged with Essex County Council and the local rail community partnership. And we met quite a few people that were there, and it was really fascinating to see them. And what was good about this is when you start a journey, you can often start it in the car, but it doesn't always need to end in the car. And this is a prime example where people were walking and coming to Colchester train station, getting on the train, and actually then going all the way to the lovely Walton-on-the-Naze for the day. And if you haven't explored lots of our Essex coastline, please do, because it's really beautiful in many ways. And lastly, I just want to say, only the other day I was out with the Lord Lieutenant of Essex and showing what we had done and achieved with our Essex Forest Initiative. And this only started last year, and it's going to run over a few years. And the whole point of this is we aim to try and plant over 375,000 trees over the next few years. And there, at that location, there was about 14,000 trees. And it was really good to see all of this plantation. But we had a target last year of 25,000 trees, but we exceeded that, and we planted 38,000. And I think this just goes to show how Essex is actually taking action and moving ahead on climate change. So you might be wondering, actually, well, that's great, but what are we doing now? Well, actually, we're doing a lot, and you've just heard from Bishop Roger here about the Essex Climate Action Commission. The commissioners were there, and there are over 30 of them. They are pretty experts in their field with a lot of knowledge, and they made over 130 recommendations to Essex County Council. And that has created a focus for us and for our officers. And we are actually looking at that, considering it, and shining that towards Cabinet. And the Cabinet will be considering all of those recommendations and working on that and acting on it over the next few weeks when we meet. And the other great thing that I think I really want everybody to know is about, we have a £500,000 climate action fund at Essex County Council, and the projects are available up to £20,000, but per project. It's available online and it's simple to apply. And what we are looking for is for people to come forward with their ideas. And it doesn't matter if you're an individual, a community, a school. We just want people who've got some great ideas about climate change to come forward and apply so that they can potentially turn those ideas into reality. And we think that's really important. So we want people to be innovative and have a look at this. And we've got a few applications already, but we'd like to see a lot more. So the more that you can spread about that, we'd appreciate it. And the other thing that we are working on with some schools, and it's a tripart agreement working load, is that we are working with a local school, and the school children are working on an app which works to educate and see about climate change. And interestingly, because of the climate is not unique just to Essex or the UK, but global, the other people that are being consulted are some school children in Los Angeles. And together they are collaborating and working on this app with also a game designer to try and knit it all together. That app is going to be out fairly shortly, and in just a moment I'm going to show you a piece of that app. But what I just want to leave you a thought with is that Essex County Council is doing a lot, but we can't do everything. But I think everybody can do something. So I'd now like to see this app film. Thank you.
Peter, thank you for that. Thank you for the inspiration as to what's happening. Thank you for the money that's available for grants. And by the way, you nailed that spin scooter. You were so competent on that. I was very impressed. Very good. Can't wait to see the Lord Lieutenant on it later. Now, you will have seen the electric vehicles arriving from France. We've got Bridget Phelps and Warren Phillips from the Electric Vehicle Association to tell us a bit more about it.
Electric vehicle associations are basically associations of keen, enthusiastic EV drivers. We are voluntary associations of enthusiasts, and basically we are there to help people adopt EVs and also to encourage governments and industry with the changes and the infrastructure that we need. If we can go on to the next slide. So we are here because we want to support the call, as Toddington said, for faster transport decarbonisation globally. And this morning's presentations from Hattie and from Toddington have conveyed the urgency and also that there are solutions and that we can all do our bit. We are absolutely convinced that EVs are great to drive, that they're cost effective in terms of the total cost of ownership, and in addition to their carbon savings, they have really big health benefits for local communities, our families, our children. So we want to convey that message and, as you see, show how great electric vehicles are. The cars are all parked outside, the drivers are here, and we're delighted also to be joined by local EV drivers many of whom have been driving EVs in this area for many years. We can't thank GRIDSERVE enough for their hospitality and for the fantastic event that they're putting on here. Their team have just been excellent. But above all else, to be here and to see what is happening now across the UK at pace to make the infrastructure and the energy savings that we all need to see is just brilliant. So thank you so much, GRIDSERVE, to you and your team for putting this on. If we can move on. So this is our trip. This is the start. We're going up next to My Energy, which is another innovative British business in the EV charging and renewable energy, home energy space. We're then going up to British Volt, where batteries are going to be built, and we're going to see the factory site of the future. We're then going up to Scotland, and we are ending up arriving in Glasgow at the heart of the COP26 area on Sunday. We're having a webinar, and we'll send you all the links, so hopefully you can watch it. But basically, it's so important what happens locally. We really appreciate the work that's going on here in Essex with your Climate Commission. We've seen your early recommendations on transport and electric vehicles and your ambitions for the charging network, and we very much welcome that. And all the work that you're doing in districts, in community groups, at the council, in civic society as well. We're all in this together. So let's go on to the next slide. So here we are at GRIDSERVE. I need say no more. We've heard the presentation, and we know that GRIDSERVE are doing so much to revolutionise the transport across the motorways and on the A roads and in different localities. Then we go up to the next slide, My Energy in Grimsby. That's tonight. Then tomorrow we're in British Volt. I'm going through this quickly because actually the important thing is to give people a chance to network and chat before we set off on our next stage. And we're being supported also by other companies along the way. So then up to Scotland. Yes. And we're going to the Kelpies, which those of you who are Scottish will know well, before we go to Glasgow. We're going to work out the number of e-miles we'll have done in this journey, and basically we're doing it on behalf of the 28 countries and 45 associations in GAVA who are all calling for fastest possible transport decarbonisation. And that is one of the aims of the COP presidency. And watch out for Transport Day on the 10th of November. All of this will be live streamed from COP, and you can see what's happening. And there could be some, we hope, exciting progress. So going on to the last slide. Here we are at EVA England. We'd love to work with you more in Essex and with the local drivers here. We're keen to grow as fast as we can. But above all else, can I thank Toddington and the team here, the Essex stakeholders and the drivers for making the big commitment in a time of pandemic to travel up to Glasgow with us. And thank you, everyone. And the e-scooters, the library, the Essex Wildlife Trust. Sorry, I live in Hampshire, so all the networks that are here today, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bridget. Wonderful to see, and great to have you with us all the way from sunny Hampshire. Next up, we have Jo Gay. She's the Head of Service for Climate Change in Southend Borough Council, to give us an idea of what that part of the glorious county of Essex is up to.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. My name's Jo Gay, and as you know, I'm Head of Climate Change for Southend Borough Council. It's a very exciting job title for a very exciting role. So I'm new in post, but I've got a lot to share with you about the work and the activity that we're doing. Like many authorities, we declared a climate emergency in 2019, and we have been working hard as a council and with our stakeholders, our residents, and our business community to work towards this goal. We're doing a variety of things. We're working from a solid evidence base to understand our carbon baseline and an effective pathway to zero carbon so that we can make decisions based on the evidence. We're working tirelessly to support climate adaptation and mitigation across the borough. We're carrying out coastal resilience and green infrastructure projects with international partners through European projects as well. We're also communicating consistently and regularly with our residents, businesses, and stakeholders so that they know what we're doing, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it, because scrutiny is key. In terms of our 2030 vision for a net zero carbon Southend, transport, specifically sustainable transport, is a really important part of that. And within that, inclusive and accessible transport, because we all need to be able to move around our area and further, but in a low carbon way. So as we explore our opportunities to transition to a low and zero carbon transport system, we're exploring the needs of residents to have access to charging points near their home. We're exploring the needs of businesses to be able to support their customers who are utilising low and zero carbon transport. But we're also exploring opportunities to ensure that it's not just private vehicles, but also public transport supports our overarching net zero carbon transport system aims. So with respect to our request to the COP26 leaders, it's really about them taking inspiration from the commitment and level activity that's taking place at a local level, not just with local authorities, but also with partnerships, stakeholders, and community groups that are really driving this agenda. My request to the COP26 leaders is to be inspired by our commitment and level of activity and to surpass it, to exceed it, so that we have the finance in place to deliver the zero carbon infrastructure that we need, so that we have the finance in place to continue to protect and enhance our green infrastructure and coastal systems, but also, as we've demonstrated today, to be inspired by and surpass our commitment to collaboration. Because as we have demonstrated today, through collaboration, you have action, and through action, you create change. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jo. If there's one thing we all need to take on board, is that we need to do more, we need to do it quickly, and we need to do it together. Jo hinted at that, and actually our next speaker, Stuart Bird, will say a bit more about that. He's part of the Danbury Community Energy Group, one of the first community energy groups in Essex. Welcome.
Thank you, Roger. Yes, so I'm Stuart Bird. I'm here representing all of the community energy groups in Essex, not just Danbury, but that's where I'm from. Danbury is a village of about 6,000 people, just to give you a scale of things. So it's a large village, almost a small town. If we could go to the next slide. Community energy's been around a while, just not in Essex. So we're blazing a trail that's already been blazed by other people in different parts of the country. So there's already a Community Energy England sort of association body, and they have a vision for 2030, which I think captures very, very succinctly what community energy is all about. And it's an energy system that is democratic, decentralised and decarbonised, where people are at the heart of the transition. And it's a real localism approach to solving the climate emergency. If we could go to the next slide. So it is a realistic alternative to the large privately owned energy generation assets that we're all familiar with, you know, whether it's a nuclear power station or a large solar farm. And indeed, it's also an alternative to government owning these assets as well. And it allows people to take a stake in and control over their local energy generation assets. And in some respects, it's a bit like going back 100 years. Most places, certainly in Essex, had a lot of mills that were either windmills or water-powered mills, and were very reliant on their own local energy sources. And it's a little bit going back to that, although modern technology allows far more energy generation to meet our future needs. Local ownership and local control over these assets is also a key enabler for acceptance. One of the issues I think we face is where to put solar farms, where to put solar generation assets and wind turbines on shore. And a key enabler to accept, for people to accept those is some form of local control and local ownership. As I mentioned, there's already 400 groups in the UK already, and they're just not in Essex, as I mentioned. So let me just talk about Sustainable Danbury. Based on what Toddington also said, there's a strong link between biodiversity and the climate emergency, and we built that into our charter. So we're not just about community energy, which is via a community benefit society, which I'll talk about in a second, but it's also about encouraging people to live a more sustainable lifestyle. And our third objective is around biodiversity and enhancing the biodiversity across Danbury and the surrounding area. So a community benefit society, which is a form of a cooperative business model, is ideal for community energy. It gives members who are the investors a share and control over the organisation. And this is on a one member, one vote basis. So it's not how much you've invested, it's whether you are an investor. But that also enables us to raise capital for investment, which is important because these assets are not cheap. And as I said, members can invest a small sum and still have full voting rights. So the benefits are there for community, and they're defined, and where those benefits go are defined by the members. So we're, as I said, in Danbury, one of the groups that's formed recently. So we've only formed this year, but there are a number of others in Essex, in Saffron Walden, in Fearing, in Tollesbury, in Colchester. I think there's one setting up in Southend as well. So we're part of a growing movement, and my request here to the assembled people, particularly those in local government, is that you continue to give us the support that we need to get going and help us become part of the fabric of energy generation as we go forward. So here are some of the ideas that we've had in Danbury of things that we can do. We actually got a little trail beforehand because when we started, we were kick-started by the fact that Essex County Council, through Empower, the EU grant-giving system, had solar panels put on the 2 local primary schools in the village. And this created a lot of excitement, and we're trying to build on that. So things like schools are an ideal location for solar panels, as well as other public buildings, but also industrial and commercial, farms and things like that. Anywhere where there's a lot of energy consumed within the premises. So we're looking at industrial, commercial and larger buildings. We're also looking at small-scale micro hydropower on the Chelmsford and Blackwater Canal. And I recently worked with the Inland Waterways Association, and there's something like 4,000 weirs, like this picture at the bottom here, which could be capable of producing 15 kilowatts on a regular basis. And the good thing about hydro is that when the sun's not shining, it normally means it's raining. And when it's raining, you've got plenty of water to go over the weirs, which is currently just wasted. You could put it through one of these micro hydro plants and generate electricity. So we're looking at that. and working, and that could go quite big. Just on the Chelmsford and Blackwater Canal, we have 10 weirs which would be suitable for this. And then the final thing that we're looking at is working with the local community on engagement on how people can save on their own energy bills and what actions they can specifically take. So I'll just finish with this little slide, which I think captures perfectly what community energy is all about, which is it's about communities empowered to lead, to secure our future energy supply in a just way, and on the way we have job creation, and there's other spin-offs as well, like community transport. So thank you, everyone.
Stuart, thank you so much. Reference there to the Blackwater, for those who aren't from Essex, it's not for nothing that we were the centre of cloth and the dyeing industry, and the Pratt River became the Blackwater to a large extent because of the dyeing industry that we had here. It would be great to see Essex as a centre of innovative new technologies that help save the planet. That's our intention in this county, and it would be lovely to see Braintree District at the heart of that. And I'm delighted to welcome Councillor Graham Butland, the leader of Braintree District Council.
Thank you, Bishop Roger. It's an honour for me to welcome you to the Green Heart of Essex. That's a slogan that we started here in Braintree over 10 years ago. Now, I don't have any slides because you are in an area where you can trace the development of the green agenda. If we were here 30 years ago, now I recognise to Hattie that's a long time ago, but to some of us not so far, we would be standing in green fields. Behind me is Great Notley, 2,500 houses. They were built by a company called Countryside Properties, who were the overall developers. And the chairman of that, someone who's no longer with us, a guy called Alan Cherry. 30 years ago, it was not fashionable. No one even thought of climate change. Just have a look, if you have the opportunity, at Great Notley. Look at the cycleways that were put in. Look at the greenery that is still there. Across the road, we have a 100-acre country park, which was constructed from the spoil of Great Notley. Remember, we're talking about 1990. And within that country park, there are now ponds which related to the runoff, huge wildlife, even rats are wildlife. You know, we sometimes get a little bit choosy about what sort of wildlife we want to protect. But marvellous. So that was 30 years ago. And now look what is going on here. We were delighted when GRIDSERVE chose this site for the first electric charging centre. Absolutely delighted, because it fits in with all we are trying to do here in Braintree. To the right, you will see Horizon 120, which will be the most modern, future-proofed, green innovation and business park anywhere in this country, not just in the county. That big building there will be occupied by British Homes. Who are British Homes, you might say, or British Construction? It's part of Western Homes, who have decided that they want to manufacture here in this country rather than import from abroad. And all of those buildings are BREEAM excellent. The actual site has, at the moment, over 300 trees planted there. The far corner is a wildlife habitat, which the wildlife have already identified and have moved in. So you are seeing in this area climate change and local authorities and the private sector coming together and actually doing something. Now, I don't claim that we have all the answers, and we certainly have a lot more to do. But I do agree with what was said by other speakers, Time is running short. The production of strategies is all very well, and we have our climate change strategy and targets. You also need to put resources to it. And as a relatively small district council, we've put £500,000. Of course, it would be nice if it was our money, but it's taxpayers' money that we have put towards that. But actually, the real battle, I think, is how do we change how we as individuals react. There is not a single reason on Great Notley why any parent should have to drive their child to the 2 primary schools that are there. There is not a shred of reason why they should do that, but they still do. So we still have a battle to fight, which is about how each of us modify the way in which we live. We can do the big stuff, but all of us can make a contribution. And that I see is one of the tasks for all of us, in whatever way we are, whether we're, I mean, Toddington is trying to change us into electric vehicles, and that's excellent. But there are also smaller things that people can do to change the way and which will have an effect. So I'm delighted to invite you here today because this is an ideal place. Here is innovation in a really big way. There was innovation 30 years ago. We now need to be looking towards the next 30 years when, who knows, even what we have here today may be out of date. We need to embrace that way of moving forward and protecting our planet. Thank you, Bishop.
Graham, thank you very much. You don't have to run away. There's plenty to do. The Wilderness Foundation are just around the corner. Essex Library Service are there. Essex and South Suffolk Community Rail Partnership over in the corner over there. We've got various VIPs here, including, if you watch Shotwell for the Planet, the Moore family from Thurrock are here, and they learnt so much through that process and will be around to be able to talk to you about it as well. So there are all kinds of people around. There's the EVs and the little spin scooters that have a go on outside. But I just want to say one thing as we draw to a close this presentation. There's been a lot of talk about carbon zero by 2050. 2050 is too late. It is too late. By 2050, Brightlingsea will be an island. A third of Mersey Island will have gone back into the sea. Canvey Island will be no more, and if you want to go shopping at Lakeside, you'll need sub-aqua equipment. 2050 is too late. We need to halve our emissions by 2030, halve them again the following decade, halve them again the decade after that. We're way off target at the moment. This is an historic moment for the history of our planet. What happens at COP26, well, it either makes it or it fails drastically. So please do what you can do. You can do so much. You've heard so much today. But it remains for me to thank you all for coming. Thank you to all those who've contributed. And please, whatever you do, in whatever way you do it, try and emit less and rediscover a good life. Thank you very much.